Chapter 2. Oh where has my Katy bear gone? Just as before, Katy's recovery was moving along quite well, with her gaining another 10 pounds just before her trip to Nashville. She now weighed a healthier 107 pounds, still too little, but out of the woods, finally. Scotty was insistent about her going to Nashville without him, leaving Katy rattled and angry to a degree. She could not understand why he was being so persistent, and why it had to be that particular week when changing dates to the visit at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital as well as a closing on an empty house would be so easy. He was pushing her away from him, and she felt it. He had promised never to let go, and yet that was what he was doing. She was going to have none of that, so to Katy, a little scare could just be the catalyst to get Scotty to cling to her again. Scotty's acting improved with each passing day, as in his mind, he was trying to push her out of it as a permanent entity in his daily grind, in order to get used to the idea of not living with his Katy bear close by him. The furthest they ever were from each other was under 90 miles, now over 1,000 miles would separate them for an undetermined amount of time. The pain had begun to become unmanageable, and Katy had taken notice of the amount of antacid that he had been taking. She questioned him about his health, and he continued to deny it being any worse than an ulcer. Scotty had a secret meeting with Jay to fill him in on the sad details of his impending exit from this world. Jay Pennington was a man with an enormous heart and tremendous faith. He vowed to pray with every bit of faith he had for a miracle healing, believing God was capable of such a thing, even if Scotty had resigned himself to this being his fate. Everyone around him tried to convince him to not give up hope, but to Scotty, it was settled in his mind. This was God's answer to Katy's problem. Taking Scotty out of the picture by way of passing on to his eternal home made all the sense in the world, and he had a supernatural peace about it. As a new believer, getting ready to meet his Maker, in his own personal life, he became very close to God, talking to him daily, as if new friends who were getting to know each other, and just as God had filled Katy with his agape love, he had filled Scotty with his shalom peace. This made his death so much more palatable to Scotty, who was the only one who was not living in the shadow of mourning, whereas, to Matthew, Becca, Nick, and Skinner, Scotty's best friend, the demon of sadness continued to permeate their lives at the thought of saying goodbye to a dearly loved man. He kept trying to ease this sorrow with the fact that he was receiving his eternal reward much earlier, and he was looking forward to it. It may have helped Scotty, and they were glad to know that his relationship with God had grown that much, but it did not ease their suffering. Of all those who loved Scotty best, the one person who was taking this the hardest was Becca. Years of pent-up anger and hostility that should never have lived in her heart had now transformed into pent-up guilt. All those years of wishing him away, for something as trivial as wanting Nick Thomas to be in Katy's life, when Katy had a star and Scotty right by her side all along, seemed so reckless to Becca. Matthew continued to try and comfort his wife, even though, to him, he was losing another brother. It never occurred to him that he would be gaining two more in Nick and Sean Everett, Nick's best friend. His grief overshadowed that fact. Jay Pennington, who like Becca, had given Scotty the cold shoulder more than his fair share's worth, likewise began to see the star-like qualities in Scotty. He began to endear himself to Scotty by inviting Scotty to his beloved Wildcat games with courtside tickets during March Madness. This made Katy suspicious, but the two men just made the excuse of finally finding something they had in common, and they were forging a new friendship. Instead of becoming angry at God for his being taken away from his Katy bear, Scotty had a spirit of gratefulness for the nearly 6 years he had with her, counting himself as duly blessed. Matthew started to press Scotty to come clean with Katy, while Scotty respectfully disagreed, still wanting Katy to gain more weight. Becca was concerned about her girls, also. Scotty did not want the girls to know until Katy did, in particular, little Scooter, whom Scotty dreaded more than anyone having to tell her. Scotty awoke 2 days before Katy's scheduled departure to a cold and empty farmhouse, assuming Katy had gone off to church without him. He was so tired as of late and had let Katy know that a few extra mornings in bed were his delight, catching up on some needed sleep. When she did not come home near lunchtime, he assumed that she went out with some friends. When evening came and she still was not home, he began to worry. He had called her for the third time when she finally answered her new phone with her new number, which she had her calls forwarded to. "Where are you? You've been gone all day," he asked, frustrated. "Oh, shoot, I forgot to leave you a note. I'm going to stay over at Jay's tonight. We have some business to go over, and it's going to take quite a few hours. I didn't want to drive all the way home, because then we have errands to run in Lexington. Sorry about that, darling." "Okay, fine, next time, check to see if you left me a note. You could have texted me, also. So, I'll see you tomorrow, before you leave, right?" Yep, probably, most likely, I think so," she said, skirting the issue. "Katie Bear, you better come home, before you leave." "Okay, Scotty. I gotta run, love ya," she said as she disconnected the call from her rented vehicle on I-40 in Nashville. When Katie did not arrive home Monday afternoon and did not answer her phone, Scotty called Jay. "Jay, this is Scotty. Is Katie going to come home here, before you two take off? I can't get her to answer her phone. You want to put her on for me?" "Scotty, she's not with me. I thought she was at home with you. I haven't seen her in over a week. She told me that she was staying at your house yesterday to go over some business items, then you had errands to run in Lexington." I don't know anything about that, nor did we have any such plans. I just got back into town a couple of hours ago. I'm supposed to meet Katie at the airport tomorrow morning. That little brat. She's up to something. She's been gone since Sunday morning, maybe even Saturday night. She claimed to be with you. She's mad about going to Nashville alone and my arranging Nick Thomas to watch her." "Excuse me, but did you just say that you arranged for Nick Thomas to watch Katie? Scott, are you taking some funny drugs or something?" "No, Jay, but one brick wall of truth is enough for me to realize that she belongs with him. I've talked with the spoiled stupid star quite a bit lately. I've seen a different side to him, and well, we've had a kind of meeting of the minds. Something tells me that Matthew may have had something to do with that, Scotty." "You know him well, don't you, Jay?" Scotty said with an air of sarcasm. "Scotty, you've done a good thing. He's a good guy and he comes from excellent stock," Jay said. "How do you know?" "Really, Scotty, don't you think I would have had this guy thoroughly checked out before I let her be with him for even 5 minutes? I went back 2 generations. I've even developed a relationship with his father in prison, who became a believer, and well, I kinda helped him reconcile with some of his family members," Jay added with pride. "Does Nick Thomas know any of this?" "Really, what do you think? He hasn't even met me. I've established a good relationship with his grandparents and have even been to their house several times. They are good people. They really love Katie. One of her appearances was in Henderson, Kentucky, and I kind of let Emma Grace's sister, Rosalind, know that Emma Grace might be interested in meeting Katie, without giving away too much information. They went to that church meeting and made themselves known to Katie. They fell in love with her, just like their grandson." Scotty shook his head, then coughed out a chuckle. "Well, I don't know why I'm surprised about this." "So, did you check out my physician's credentials, Jay?" he asked with sarcasm. There was a silent pause. "Oh, get out of here, you didn't." "Well, I just wanted to know where they went to medical school, to see that they were top of the line." This cracked Scotty up, but gave him a warm feeling to know that Jay cared that deeply. UK Markey Cancer Center is one of the best, so, Scotty, you're in good hands. Tears formed in Scotty's eyes, an occurrence that seemed to be happening more and more as he contemplated the kindness and tenderness of the people around him. Like he told Katie, he was becoming a sentimental sap. While the Joe Cop in Scotty had gotten a death sentence, the new and improved Scotty P. Wells was being graced with a life sentence with an eternity in paradise. "Well, Jason Pennington, I guess I don't have to worry about who's watching out for Katie." Just don't ever put those kids over her health again by overbooking her, because if I'm not here in this life hunting you down, I'll come back haunting you to oblivion, you got that? 10-4, Trooper Wells. I've been informed by a common contact that Nick plans to make sure that does not happen, likewise. Who do you know in his camp? Did you plan to put her down in her house in Tennessee just to put her that much closer to him, Jay? Hey, I only found it when I was down there investigating a certain country artist, whom I had heard could possibly have an interest in our Katie. Can I help it if she loved it? As soon as I saw it, I knew she'd love it, and she did, didn't she? Yeah, you know her too. When I saw it with her, it didn't take 5 seconds into that driveway for me to know that that home would be hers and that it was her dream home. Right, you agree, it's Katie all over. Now, could I help it if a certain artist just happened to live next door to that near-century-old Victorian in that new construction? What the hell are you talking about? Well, I found the house. I knew she'd love it, but I happened to find it when I went out to see where Nick Thomas lived, and lo and behold, Katie's dream house was next door with a for sale sign. It took some finagling with a few realtors down there, but we got all the liens and problems taken care of, and Katie of course, fell in love with it. Now, I didn't plant that house there, nor did I have anything to do with Nick Thomas living next door. That was providentially and divinely planned, I believe that. There is no human that could explain how Katie's dream house ended up right next to, Scotty interrupted him. Her dream man, he asked. That's not what I was going to say, but it is awfully convenient, you know. He'll watch out for her. He is almost as much of a protective spirit as you know. Scotty began to deduce that Sean Everett probably had a lot to do with Jay's intimate knowledge of Nick Thomas. Scotty P. Wells was being graced with a life sentence. You do realize that she's going to have your hide when she finds out. Scotty said. Yes, so don't tell her that you or I knew, then she can give credit where credit is due, with God. Scotty sighed and laughed a short sad laugh. Act surprised when you find out. Does Thomas know? Nope, a friend of his knows. Sean? Yes, and Nick's grandparents. I kind of let them in on it. They also believe that was divinely appointed. Well, as much as I am beginning to hate that man, again, because I am jealous, at least he'll be close enough to keep an eye on her, making her eat. It sure will make leaving her in a couple of weeks easier on me. Leaving her? Yes, I'm going to cut her loose and head up to my half-sister Rachel's in New Hampshire for a few weeks, or maybe months. Please tell me, you are going to tell her about the cancer before that? Nope, and neither are you, or I'll spill the beans about the house ahead of time, and she'll back out, you know that, Scotty said in a threatening voice. I'll tell her in my own time, when I think she is ready. Now, keep your trap shut, do you hear me? I'm not above crushing your neck, either. 10-4, Trooper with the strong hands. Just please, don't die on her without some kind of warning. Please, tell her soon. In my time, just like you've all said that God would work this out in his time. Well, I'm taking control of this one. Now, where do you think she's gone? Hold on, let me get my GPS tracking out. There was silence for a few moments, then Scotty heard the keys of a keyboard tapping. According to this, I see her truck is in one location in Nashville, but her phone is at the hotel where we are staying. Her tablet is in another. I'll get back to you. The little stinker is sending us on a wild goose chase. Oh, that brat. She's doing this to get back at me for making her go down there alone. I'll find her, don't worry, I have eyes everywhere. Just worry about taking care of yourself. I can handle her. Scotty and Jay hung up their prospective phones, and Scotty proceeded to call Matthew to let him know of Katie's shenanigans. Matthew in turn called Sean to let him know, who offered to call Nick, who was completely unaware of just how close Katie was to him at that moment. Dude, we have problems with Katie. It appears she's somewhere in Nashville, but Jay has her phone, truck, and tablet located in 3 different places. Sean said, informing Nick of her childlike behavior. What the hell is she doing? Nick asked. Apparently, she doesn't want anyone to know where she is. Scotty thinks she's doing this as revenge for sending her down here alone with you as her bodyguard. You know, Katie, it's just like something she would do. Jay is making phone calls. You go to the Nashville Public Library on Church Street. That is where her tablet is registering on Jay's GPS. I'm on it. I'll call you if I find her. This is the last thing that Scotty needs to worry about. I know. I'm sure she's fine, but it's best if we know where she is. Call me if you find her, and I'll call you if Jay finds her before we do. I'll text you Jay's number so you can get in touch with him. Monday evening dragged on with no one having found Katie. Nick was pacing the floorboards in his parents' home, while Scotty was growing impatient with Jay. He phoned him again for the third time for an update. What's the deal? What have you found out? He asked with exasperation. She left her truck at the Enterprise rental. The attendant was under strict orders from Katie to not reveal what kind of vehicle or her destination. I called the airport, and she canceled her flight on Tuesday morning. She apparently got herself a burner phone that cannot be traced and had all her calls forwarded to that number. I called the hotel, and the manager told me that she asked the matron to hold her iPhone until I got there. Her tablet was at the Nashville Library, and Nick Thomas went there, but was unable to find her. He has her tablet, they gave it to him after I called them. Jay, with all the hotels in Nashville, finding Katie would be like finding a needle in a haystack. I know. Don't worry. She'll turn up. She's acting like her typical bratty self, running away like a child and stewing somewhere. I'll find her. Becca arrived at the farmhouse roughly around 9 in the evening to a frantic Scotty. She tried to calm him by giving him a tranquilizer. Nick called for the umpteenth time to ask if they had heard anything. Scotty assured him that he'd call if he heard. Nick let Scotty know that he was going to head back to his house, but to call him, and he could be back in Nashville in a flash if they heard anything. With the tranquilizers on board, Scotty's investigative skills were just a little slower than normal. An hour later, Scotty woke up with a start. He started yelling for Becca, and she came running, worried about him. Becca, 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 come here. What is the matter? Are you okay? Give me the phone, Becca, a drowsy Scotty said. I think I know where she might be. He said as she handed Scotty the phone. Damn, I can't see any of the numbers. Becca. Call Thomas, I know where the little brat is, he said, rubbing his eyes and trying to wake his body fully against the narcotic effects. Becca took the phone and called Nick, then handed the phone to Scotty. Thomas, I know where she is, he said, slurring with his groggy voice. Are you okay? Nick asked. You sound like you've been drinking. You wouldn't do that the night before surgery, would you? I'm not. Becca's got her little pharmacy going here, and she's doping me up. Listen, Katie's probably at her new house. There's a porch swing there. I'll bet anything, she's camped out there. Nick shook his head. What are you talking about? Nick heard Becca's reaction in the background. Scotty, that's brilliant. Sure, that's where she is, for sure, she said, less worried. What new home? Nick asked. She bought a house down there out in the country. It was her dream house. She is supposed to close on it this Friday. Didn't Sean tell you? I thought he knew. She told me that she told him. Oh, that doesn't surprise me, lately. She's been giving orders to him to not reveal any more information about her to me. He's obliged. So, where is her house that she's buying? An elated Nick asked. Scotty hesitated, hating having to tell him, and hearing his reaction. It's out in the country, right outside Nashville, well, a couple of towns out. Okay, you got an address? Well, it's in Christiana. I live in Christiana. Yeah, so I just heard. Well, actually, it's kinda close to you, according to Jay, her manager. Scotty said, hesitating between each word, dreading saying it and hearing Nick's elation. Wait, no way, it couldn't be, not the yellow Victorian, next door. No, that would be too incredible to be true. No, that can't be it, that's too good, and excited Nick asked, aggravating Scotty. You know, Thomas, you get all the breaks, don't you? It makes me wish that I had finished you off last month. Shit, oh, my God. How the hell did that happen? He started laughing. I saw that house and thought she'd love it, a couple of years ago, when I bought this one. I wanted to buy that one, but I didn't know if she'd ever come back to me. Holy shit, my teacher's moving in next door. You're not joking with me, are you? Don't mess with me? Oh, I wish I was. Yes, that little yellow Victorian right next to yours. I've been down there with her. She went gaga over it. Of course, we had no idea that your house was next door. They told her a guy in marketing owned it, and he traveled all the time and was hardly ever there. That was another thing about it that she loved. No neighbors, and then look who the hell it is. Nick laughed a long hearty laugh. Who told her I was a marketing guy? The realtor that Jay got. You know that little weasel planned this, Scotty said. Jay, her manager? Yes, that little twerp has manipulated her life since the first word he read in the original manuscript, for crying out loud. I think I'll make sure he disappears before I leave this world, and no one will be able to find him, Scotty said with a chortle. Shit, Scotty, I'm going to make sure I never get on your bad side, again. Damn straight, Thomas, and if you pull any crap with my Katy Bear after I'm gone, don't think I'm going to let you off the hook. If anyone can get back down here to drain the life out of you, Trooper Scotty P. Wells can, and don't you forget it. Nick started laughing. Gotcha, Scotty, you know, it's funny because the realtor told me that no one ever passed on that house because of the liens and red tape involved. No one wanted to pay all the back taxes and wait for it, because it wasn't worth the extra money, but not my teach, when she wants something, she'll wait for anything. Excuse me? She's not your teach, yet, and I'm not beyond crushing your throat still, Thomas, so knock off the gloating, an aggravated Scotty retorted. Sorry, Scotty. I got a little excited. You can't blame me. Okay, I'll run over and see if she's there. Boy, Thomas, you really are a few bulbs short of a full set of lights. What the hell do you think she'll do if she finds out you are next door? Scotty shook his head and Becca laughed. Nick heard Becca laughing in the background and shook his head, embarrassed. Jay just told me a few hours ago. If I had known that house was next to yours, I surely wouldn't have let her buy it. But I guess it was good that I didn't know. What do you think, Becca? Becca was in the background laughing and texting Matthew with the news. Scotty, I'm not beyond being embarrassed at this point, if my Katie is moving next door. I'll get in my truck and drive over there. If she's there, I'll physically pick her up, plop her in my Escalade, and personally deliver the little brat to my grands. She's been expecting her and very excited to see her. Okay, Becca, that's about enough carrying on about it. Nick heard Scotty say, frustrated and somewhat jealous. You know, Thomas, if I wasn't dying, you'd be dead right now, and no one would be the wiser on how it happened. Scotty, I'm surprised at you, Becca said, reprimanding him. Nick decided it was best to change the subject. Do you think she's eaten anything? Nick asked. I doubt it. She's been gone since Sunday morning. Knowing my Katy Bear, the sneaky thing probably skipped out Saturday night after I went to sleep. Go over, see if she's there, then call me ASAP, before I fall asleep and have no more ideas or congruent thoughts. After that, I'll have to get the entire brigade of Tennessee State Troopers looking for her, if she's even down there. You know, she could be back up here in Lexington for all we know. I just wanted to let you know that she didn't want to go down there and be with you, so she may be hiding out here, you know. Okay, I deserved that. I'm sorry, Scotty. I'll call you right back. Nick and Scotty disconnected, and Nick went down to his garage, got in his Escalade and drove over to the yellow Victorian and up the long dirt driveway. He peered onto the dark porch but could not see anything, having the wits to not turn on his headlights. When he got out of his truck, he shone a flashlight up on the front porch toward the swing. It appeared to be moving slightly. He thought he saw a figure laying down, curled up on it. That's got to be her, he said quietly. He noted a car parked around the corner in the back of the house on the grass. It was a small economy-sized car. He slowly approached the swing and recognized the tousled auburn hair, sticking out from under a blanket. It could be no one else. He walked around back to the vehicle and checked out the rental agreement form in the passenger seat. Opening the door, quietly, he looked at the form. It was registered to a Catherine Peterson. He shook his head and laughed at her antics and Scotty's brilliancy. He texted Scotty from his cell. Nick, found her. Sleeping on porch swing. Rental car in back. Rental agreement, says Catherine Peterson. Becca, thank God, Scotty near asleep. I'll tell him. Pray for him, tomorrow. I'm going to be in the or with him. Slap Katie upside the head for all of us, please. I'll call Matthew and Jay. Nick, good, Becca. Take care of that man for us. I really like him, even though he still scares me. Becca laughed at the text and woke Scotty, who nodded, sighed, and then fell right back to sleep under the influence of the tranquilizer, and finally not in pain, nor worried about his Katy bear. Nick cracked up at the text. He was elated. Not only was she down in the Nashville area, but she was right next door, and would be moving in shortly. He had to keep his home base a secret until the closing, then he was going to have so much fun springing the news on her. Nick opened the passenger side door of his Escalade and laid back the seat. He then gingerly ascended the porch, careful to avoid any creaking boards. Katie was sound asleep on the porch, with a blanket wrapped around her. He slowly and cautiously put his arms under her and lifted her tiny body, hoping not to wake her and face her wrath. Katie took in a deep breath and moaned as he descended the steps with her in his arms. Scotty, she said in a sleepy voice. Nick just grunted in a low voice, not wanting to be recognized. Where are we going? She asked as she nuzzled into his chest, thinking it was Scotty. Home, he whispered with authority as if he were Scotty. Okay, she moaned, half asleep. Nick grunted again. Uh-huh,